Welcome to the Tapped In podcast.
And today we are going to do a deep dive into the day-to-day of an undertaker.
Today we have on our show Jen Dasso. Did I say your last name right? Oh, God. I'm so bad with names. She is an undertaker, otherwise known as funeral director. We're really happy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. So Erica and we've been doing or wanting to do, some interviews with people with very odd jobs or things that are just like out of the ordinary. And yours is completely out of the ordinary. I mean, even in the county, there's probably only a handful of funeral directors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not something that a lot of people know about. It's not a career that a lot of people want to go into. So, when I went to school for it a long time ago, there was a wait list, and now you can just get right in.
There's a wait list.
There was a wait list. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what inspired you to actually get into it? I mean, is this like a family thing or something that's just...
No, actually, I don't have any family in the funeral service industry. My family does not own a funeral home. It's something that when I was 12, I went to my grandpa's funeral, and it was up north. So it was a smaller, community funeral home. And that was, back in the day where it was 2 days long. You went for the night visitation or the wake, and then you came back the next day for the funeral and the burial and the church service, and it was really long. And I just remember being at the funeral home and being like any kid at the funeral home, when they're bored, they take a tour and they look at things. So I went downstairs and I looked at the caskets and I saw the hearse, and then I wound up talking to the funeral director, and I just thought, this is kind of a nice job. And it's just something that I looked into, and it never really creeped me out. And I figured, this is something I could do. So that's what I did.
This completely reminds Erica and myself of My Girl, which I'm sure you've seen, right?
Yeah.
So when you saw that movie, I don't know, how old were you when you saw that movie? Were you like, this is something I want to do or relatable to my interest?
I don't know if I was older when I saw it, but it is. It's just typical, it's just like, just the funeral home, the family-owned funeral home. That's the first place I worked, was a family-owned funeral home. And, they were super nice, and it was just a really good experience. And, I just could relate.
That is really neat. Most people would be scared, I think, or fearful of having nightmares or things happening, when they're alone with a body.
Yeah.
Did you never have that kind of feeling?
No, I mean, it is kind of creepy at first. It is an adjustment getting used to, being in a room with a, dead human being. But it is kind of creepy, because you don't know these people.
Yeah.
But you get over it, and then it just becomes kind of a job. But you take care of these people,
Do you know the cause of death when you're embalming a body or working with a body?
Yeah, sometimes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So another quick question too. What type of education or how long is the program? What do you need to do to become a funeral director?
So it varies state to state. Here in the state of Wisconsin, it's a 2-year associate degree. And I got my degree from MATC. So it's a 2-year associate degree, but then we also have to serve an apprenticeship, which is a full year.
Okay.
And then during that year, you have to do so many arrangements or sit in on them. You have to do so many embalmings or sit in on them. And then you have to do, I think, over 2,000 hours working at the funeral home. And then after that, you have to take the state test on all the statutes. But then there's also a national board test that you have to take as well.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when I think of funeral director, I think, it's someone who, organizes the funeral and tells the family where to go, that kind of thing at the day of, laying this person to rest. But you go into, what you've been talking about, working with the bodies and embalming them. Can you tell us more like about all encompassing of the job, like what it all entails, like what if, like maybe from start to finish, kind of when you get a call when there's someone that is deceased?
Oh, absolutely. So when we take the first call, that's when, we start. And then we make arrangements to go to the place of death and bring that person back into our care. So that could be at a hospital, it could be a nursing home, hospice, the medical examiner's office. So we bring that person back into our care. Then we also make arrangements for them to come in like the next day or so to sit down and make the arrangements. We ask them, if they have any idea, if, any type of services they would like to have, so we can start getting ideas in our mind, how we're going to plan their funeral. So then once they do come in, we sit with them, we take all the necessary information we need for the newspaper notice, if they want to have one. We gather all the statistical information for the death certificate, because we file those for the family. We also help them with filling out the form for Social Security benefits. If they're a veteran, we help with that too. So then we sit down with them and then we actually plan the funeral. What would you like to have? Any type of thing here at the funeral home? Do you want services at church? Is it going to be a burial? Is it going to be an entombment, cremation? And then we actually plan it all out, help them plan it, and then we have the funeral. It basically happens, it's like, like you hear wedding planning and you have this wedding planner that gets all of the same stuff together and you do it like over a year. We literally do it in like 3 days.
Yeah. And with people who are grieving, I mean, I can't even imagine. I feel very fortunate that I don't know enough about this because I haven't had many deaths of people close to me. And so I've been somewhat removed from that, but I can't even imagine what that's like, both for the family, but then also on your side it's got to be such a sensitive and,
it's really, it takes a special person to be able to sit down with people when they're, grieving. Some people come in and it's sudden, it's unexpected. So that's different from the family that may have, had somebody dying of cancer for a long time. So they've been anticipating it. So you have different emotions. Either way, though, it's really tough and you have to, get them to talk and you have to get them to open up when they're in a state of shock.
Right. I mean, they're probably not even thinking straight, let alone able to, make some decisions that.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of questions as well as some of our listeners. What's that?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't want to come across as disrespectful, but I think it's human nature to have some curiosity about, after one dies, like what happens. And, we've all heard about rigor mortis, which I had to look up on how to spell yesterday. I was completely wrong. So I don't know how, we're just going to ask these questions and really we don't intend to be disrespectful or anything, but we're just trying to, understand what happens and what kind of things you experience. So
Sure.
So while all of that is happening and you're, going through the arrangements, then this body is essentially just like in the refrigerator in the funeral home, or like, what do you call it? I don't even know.
Well, it depends what kind of services the family has decided to have. If they're going to have some sort of like open casket viewing, then we go ahead and ask permission for embalming. So then, somebody usually is in the back of the funeral home, doing the necessary preparations, the embalming, things like that. If there's not going to be an embalming, say closed casket visitation or cremation, we do have, coolers for that. For those
I said refrigerator.
Same thing. Yeah, it's a big walk-in cooler.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do embalming? Do you do some of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is the cooler, is it like what it looks like in the movies where it looks like file cabinets where they pull out like a drawer, or no?
Well, some coolers are like that. Some of the hospitals used to have coolers like that with the drawers, but now a lot of coolers, they just have the big doors and you just walk in. So, they're walk-in coolers.
So they're all like on gurneys then, or is there a lot? I don't know. Is there usually a lot in there at once? A lot of different.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the hospital. Yeah, because some hospitals have more deaths than
Oh,
others.
but even like at the funeral home, can you only do like one at a time, or I don't know how that works.
Our cooler, it depends on the funeral home. The funeral home that I'm working at now can have 6 bodies in it. There is a funeral home that I used to work at in Milwaukee. They made an extra large cooler, and they can put in about 15 to 20. So,
Did you ever get scared you'd get locked in the cooler?
yeah, sometimes it was like one of my thoughts, but they do have like the emergency handle on there. So,
That would be a nightmare. Mostly
Well,
I
it would
was
be
scared of that.
yeah, it would be very cold. So,
I was in a room with a dead body once because I used to work at the hospital, and this person had passed away, and I don't know, the staff, the management, they told me to wait in there because someone was coming to pick them up, and I had to wait in the room with them. And I don't remember exactly why, but I was like in the corner, backed into the corner as far as I possibly could go. And I was like looking for any movement. And I was like, please, dear God, do not sit up while I am in this room. But I'm glad that I had that experience, because to me, I do believe that everybody has a soul. And I was looking at this deceased person, and I'm like, wow, this is just an empty cavity. Like, their soul is gone. Like, sure, there's 2 people in the room, but there's only one soul. And then I got like really deep in my thoughts on that, but it was just kind of, I don't know, a very weird feeling. So, speaking of rigor mortis, have you experienced that? You must have in your field, right?
what, rigor mortis?
Yeah, you must have had that happen to you, where someone, I don't know if they really sit up or if that's more like a movie thing.
No, it is totally a movie thing. They don't sit up. And rigor mortis, what happens is basically the enzymes and stuff in your body breaking down. So it doesn't happen right away. It usually takes place 12 hours after death. People don't know this. It takes place like 12 hours after death. And then it actually then will dissipate after a while too. So that's like a lot of times medical examiners, and you see like CSI, they'll go in and try to figure out what the time of death was. They use rigor mortis as a timeline.
Interesting.
And how much of the body moves? Like, can you actually like see it? Does a hand come up? What, like?
No, so say you were to, pass away in a weird position, like say you were laying in your bed like this. I mean, after 12 hours, you would be like stuck like this. It's very hard to break it, the rigor mortis. I mean, you can by like bending and moving. Yes. So you can, but it is very stiff.
Oh, I should have known this, but I thought like rigor mortis was where the body moved, like when it was, okay, it's the opposite, where it just becomes stiff.
Is the stiffening. It's the stiffening. But yeah, bodies don't move after death.
Oh, then what's there to be afraid of? I was like worried about bodies moving. They don't move.
They don't move. Nope. The only thing that's really freaky and what they call something is the death rattle is like if you move a body, and this happened to me one time, I did shriek a little bit. When you actually like move the body and say you were to like have their head go back, any air that's still in their lungs will come out.
Oh yeah.
Well, this lady expelled like
they're like, Jenny. You're like,
well, it wasn't like that, but there was, the air coming out, and I did shriek a little bit, but yeah.
I love that happened.
They don't sit up, the arms don't move, nothing like that happens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, Erica, your turn.
This is a really random question that's kind of, I mean, it's related, but not necessarily to what we're talking about right now, but I'm super curious to know who drives the hearse.
Any of us. I mean, you don't have to be licensed to drive the hearse. It's not a special license. A lot of times what we do is we hire part-timers is what we call them. And, we hire a lot of retired policemen, firemen that want part-time jobs in their retirement. So they work at the funeral home. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yes. That is an option.
Char, put it on your list.
And it is.
I'm not going to be doing that.
Oh, it is. It's great. We have a lot of them, and thank God for them because they're the ones that come in and work, like the 4 to 8 visitations
Oh,
They work the daytime hours too when it's, super busy and we need help.
yeah.
Wow.
How big is the staff for a funeral?
For an actual funeral, we usually take 3 to 4 people to like say if it's at a church. Yeah, we take 3 or 4 people because you have to have a licensed funeral director conducting the funeral, and then you might need some part-time staff helping you. You got to carry all the flowers in and set up picture boards. Somebody might be outside parking cars in the parking lot, getting the flags on.
There is a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, more than a lot of people realize. It's this well-oiled machine, it works out.
Yeah. Have you ever had to like call in sick and like someone else is like, I can't make it either. And like, well, what are we going to do? Someone has to go.
Yes, we do. We have a lot of part-time people helping. We have services that have part-time funeral directors that will come and help. We call them trade workers that just like work part-time or on an as-need basis.
Okay. So you have some backup plans.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is another kind of random one, but have you ever had any strange requests for like something that somebody, a family member or a close friend wants to put in the casket?
Oh, yeah.
What are some of those
We've
things?
gotten like cell phones, remote controls, beer, cigars, cigarettes, all that stuff. I mean, we've had like when I used to work in Milwaukee, sometimes like the gang funerals would come and slip stuff in there, joints, bottles of booze, beer cans.
And what happens with them? Do they stay in there and they get buried with that stuff, or does somebody go in and take those things out?
No, we just leave them in there.
When you position a body in a casket, like it looks really secure. And I'm always like, how does that, maybe it's because of the rigor mortis, I don't know. But is there anything you do to actually secure them, like in what a position, and even close their mouth?
So when we do the embalming process, we have like arm blocks and head blocks that we, position the bodies with. And then we kind of prop their arms up on these blocks. And once the embalming takes place, it kind of fixates that position. So then when we do put them in the casket, they're kind of already positioned like that. So it makes it easy to place them in the casket. And then we might just have to prop up their arms a little bit. But we do that in the embalming process. So they kind of set up like that, if that's the word.
Sure, yeah. And I know when I had asked you, I think it was yesterday, I asked you what kind of questions people normally, the questions that you get asked about this. And you said that about draining the blood, that people ask you if you actually hang the bodies upside down.
Right. Yeah. Do you hang the bodies upside down? Right. Do they sit up? Things like that. And no, we don't. We don't hang anybody upside down. We don't do anything crazy. We don't cut off limbs. We don't break limbs. We don't put pennies in the eyes. We don't break teeth.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions just then. How do you drain the blood? Like, how does that happen?
So it's part of the embalming process, and it's kind of like, when people ask, it's kind of like a mini surgical procedure. We make an incision right here on the clavicle, and we raise the carotid artery and the jugular vein, and we pump with our embalming machine, we pump the solution into the artery. It circulates throughout the whole entire body, all the way down to the toes. And then it will bring the blood and the arterial fluid back out. So it's like a big circular, yeah.
Interesting.
So then the blood comes out the jugular vein.
How do you connect those vessels to your machine? What does it feel like? Is it like a rubber tube?
Well, yeah, there is a tube, and then there's a cannula. We insert that into the carotid artery, and we clamp it, and we turn it on, and you turn it on, and it goes through. And then you can literally see it, raising the arteries and raising the veins once it gets all the way through. Mm-hmm. And then, sometimes we can put dyes in the fluid to make them a little bit more pink.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or if somebody, has circulatory problems or something like that, and we don't know if it's getting all the way down to the toes, that's when we can also put dye in, so then we can see if it's getting all the way down.
Oh, yeah, because if it doesn't, then that part starts to decay.
No, then instead, if that was the case, then we would just raise an artery like down in the leg or in the wrist.
Oh,
in
you
the arm.
figure it out before it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's other things we can do. We're not just going to let that limb fall.
Is that what would happen? It would just fall off. I don't know. No, okay. Speaking of, sorry, real quick, because we're on the topic of blood, I just want to ask, because we had a listener that asked, what do you do with the blood? They were wondering if you donate it, but obviously we had kind of said that maybe that you can't because it's not oxygenated, right?
Correct. We don't donate the blood. Like I said, it's just kind of like a surgical procedure. It's probably just what hospitals do too when they clean up the operating room, or what the medical examiners do when they do autopsies. We just kind of clean it up and wash it away.
Okay. Go ahead, Erica.
Well, I was just going to ask, how quickly does a body begin to decay if you weren't to embalm it right away, or if you weren't to embalm it at all, I suppose?
Right away.
Wow.
That process starts right away, believe it or not, and it starts right here in your trachea, in your throat, just because of all the enzymes that you have in your body and all of the food that you have that's not digested, that's still in your stomach and in your gut. That's where it starts.
Okay, interesting.
So yes, I mean, that starts happening right away. I mean, you're not going to see it, you're not going to smell it right away, but it does start, immediately after death.
Wow.
Do you have to remove the contents from the stomach?
No.
Oh.
No, it all helps. Like I said, when we do the embalming, all the chemicals and things that we use, that helps aid in the breakdown and the preservation. So it helps.
Okay. Have you ever been grossed out by one of the bodies you have to work on?
Oh, yeah.
What is that like? I mean, how do you... Is it just a mental game that you just got to get over it?
Well, I mean, there's things like I shouldn't say that, a lot of people don't want to do my job. They think it's gross, but there's a lot of jobs I personally wouldn't want to do either that I think are gross. And, there's some things, it's not even the bad stuff that grosses me out. It's kind of like, stuff that's in the mouth, because we have to clean out the mouth and we have to clean out the nose. That's kind of the stuff that I don't like. But I have seen really bad decomposed bodies that are really bad, and there's nothing you can do. You can't do mind over matter, because you see it, you smell it. It's just bad. It's bad.
Oh,
yeah.
Are those typically when you would do or advise the family to do closed casket or something like that, or is that okay?
Yeah.
What percentage of funerals are like open casket and closed casket and then cremation?
Well, it really does depend, believe it or not, the area of the country that you work in. California is really big on cremations. Here in the Midwest, we're, very traditional. So we do still a lot of open casket viewings. I don't know what the East Coast does, but here we do, we do a lot of open casket viewing. Still, you could still do an open casket viewing followed by cremation. So it just kind of depends on what the family wants.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't want an open casket for their family member, but they want to just say their goodbyes to them before they get cremated or something, are they allowed to say their goodbyes to them while they're, okay.
Yes. Yep. We encourage
them in body form. Okay.
Yeah.
You encourage it.
Well, yeah, it's really tough for me as a funeral provider when families come in and they say, we don't want to have any sort of funeral. We don't want to see them. We want to remember them as they were.
Yeah.
We're going to go and do our own thing. To me, I feel like that's just, I don't feel that's right. I feel part of, the whole process is to have a funeral. It's part of the grieving process. You shouldn't deny yourself the grieving process, because it really, it's part of the, you have to grieve. You have to do your thing.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, a question from one of our listeners. She wanted to know, and this is personal, so feel free to not answer, but she wanted to know what your own choice would be after death. Would you do cremation, open casket, closed casket? What would you do?
Well, I already got my funeral planned out, and I change it numerous times, and I always come home and tell my kids, because I am divorced, single mom, so I tell my kids all the time if I see something cool that, the funeral industry has come out with. So my latest funeral plan is to be embalmed and to, be laid out open casket. I told them, make sure my hair and outfit looks amazing. Please don't put me in a black suit, because I always wear black suits, so no black. There's this amazing red casket that I absolutely love. But there's a purple one too that I have my eye on. So either one of those, I want to be laid out in it, but then I also want to be cremated afterwards. I want to have lots of flowers and balloons and just have an amazing playlist at my funeral.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I want to have it at the funeral home.
Yeah. Okay.
Not at a bar, not at a park. I want to have it at the funeral home.
Okay. That sounds great. Well,
yeah.
Besides the death part.
Right.
Can I come? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's it like when you, I was going to ask, what's it like when people ask what you do for a living and you tell them that you're, a mortician, or I don't know if you say funeral director or what, but knowing what you said about being divorced on dates, like if you're dating and you tell somebody, I'm curious what people's reactions are.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, well, sometimes
you don't have to answer, but...
It depends. Sometimes I don't tell people, especially, like when I was going out on dates for a while, I wasn't telling people. There were some people I would actually lie and say, oh, I'm an accountant or something, I mean, some people get freaked out by it, but a lot of people, they do have a lot of questions, and it's okay. But it's kind of annoying when people do get so freaked out by it, because it's not, to me, it's not one of those freaky jobs. I'm here to actually, help people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You seem like you'd be good at it. I never have the words or good words to say to someone when they have a loved one that's passed away. Like, I tend to kind of shy away from that because I never know, like, I feel bad for everything, but I never know what to actually say. Is there like,
it is, it's really tough. And so in the funeral home, you have it's divided in half. You have the people that work in the front that make the arrangements. And then you have the people that work in the back that do like the embalmings, the cosmetics, and the casketing. And I loved working in the back because for me, it was hard to know what to say to people. And I didn't really like doing the public speaking because you got to get up in front of all these people and make announcements and, be the one in charge and to direct them which way to go and stuff. So I like to work in the back. But then I had somebody, my stepdad died a year and a half ago. And this was my first, believe it or not, and this whole time I was a funeral director, it was my first like immediate family member that died. So I was on the other side. So I was just like taken aback, but I knew what was going to happen. But then all of a sudden I came back to work and I'm just like, wow, now I kind of know what these people are going through.
Yeah.
So it has made it a little bit easier to talk to them.
Now you can relate. Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
So this is a little bit of a shift too, but I'm curious about if you've had any, different requests maybe because of diverse religious or cultural backgrounds, maybe something that was out of your norm or out of the ordinary for you, even if it was customary maybe for them, if there's anything that stands out.
I mean, we get a lot of different requests from families, depending on the religion or just, something that they want to do. But we try to honor everybody's wishes within reason. We have had motorcycle processions for Harley riders. We've even had a hearse in the back of a tractor wagon taken to the cemetery. We've had motorcycles in the funeral home. You name it. Like I said, we try to accommodate
have you ever dropped a body, or has anything like that ever happened?
I have never personally, knock on wood, but people have. I mean, it's a tough job. You really have to be strong. I mean, we are sometimes, going on home removals, and they like literally die on the toilet. They get stuck between the toilet and the tub, or they die in the tub. They're in the upstairs bedroom on the second floor. They're in the basement. We have to, we get there and then we go and assess the situation, and we're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Do we need backup? And we're doing this while we're in a suit. So, so you really have to rely on your partner and, talk it through and, do it the best way you can, dignified, without dropping them. But I mean, it is tough in situations like that. If the families want to help, we will allow them to. We're like, yes, please, we will take your help. Otherwise, we'll just ask them, if you don't want to witness this, you can please step outside. We kind of encourage that too, because we never know what's going to happen. I mean, I remember one time being on a removal, and I was with a friend of mine, and when she bent over, her pants just split. So she was like terrible. She was mortified, and I'm like, don't even worry about it. They don't care about your pants, But she was walking backwards the whole time. But I mean, that's. But we take a regular like cot, and then we take we take other devices that we can use, like boards and stuff like that, to lift and assist. And if somebody dies upstairs, we might like put them on a chair and then use the chair to bring them downstairs or something like that.
Like make a little makeshift slide and push them down. Yeah. I bet there's all kinds of creative ways that you'd have to come up with ways to transport the body. Wow.
Yeah, what are your and it is part of being a funeral director is kind of like being like MacGyver. You really just kind of come up with stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do your kids think about all this?
Well, they were born and raised with mom doing this, so to them it's normal. And when they were little, I would take them to the funeral home if like I had to work late, or if like I said, I was going through a divorce, so sometimes they would go with me while they were waiting for their dad to pick them up, and I would just stick them in the chapel and put on a video, and there might be a casket there, but they never really were freaked out, because that's kind of how they were raised. It was
normal for them.
Right.
Yeah. That is so cool. You're like, yeah, I do. I think it's really neat. I don't want my kids to be like afraid of that kind of thing. I don't think we should as adults be afraid, but we never see dead bodies. So it's like, we see more in movies than we do in real life. So that's what
I always was open and talked about it with them, that death is part of life and things like that. And they never really experienced it either until their grandpa died. And then it was just like, oh my gosh, Mom, I can't believe this is actually what you do and what you've done. I'm like, yeah. So
you said you're one of the people that also put the makeup on, or is it someone else?
Yes. No, I do that too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I do everything.
If I had the job, like you have to put makeup on too, it'd probably be a disaster. But you look like you are well kept together, and you can do makeup and hair and everything. I mean, is that just like a natural thing for you to do that for someone else?
Well, I mean, it's tricky on, somebody that's passed away, because obviously they're not warm, their color's a little bit different, it depends. Everybody's been to a funeral where they walked up to the casket and the body just looks terrible. We've all experienced it. And then there's some where we go and they're like, wow, they look really good. It really is a skill to know how to, put somebody together. It starts, like I said, with the embalming, with getting the mouth closed right and the eyes closed. It really is kind of a skill. It's, that's the base for the makeup. Yeah. And then there's, things we can do and use, and there's waxes and cosmetics specially formulated for, funeral homes.
Like, what brand is that?
Right. Well, it's just a thicker cream, stuff like that. We can use stuff off, the shelves of Maybelline, the CoverGirl. We can use it, but it just kind of depends what you're comfortable with, what you want to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is all very interesting.
Well, I was just going to ask if there are any questions, like that maybe we haven't asked that you get regularly, or that you think, oh, people would find this really interesting?
I think, well, besides the cosmetics, I mean, if somebody had, this is another thing I don't think you guys realize, like if there was a really bad accident or something, or, you know, we're talking about, you know, closed casket versus open, something, there was some sort of trauma, you know, a lot of times we're skilled, we're trained, we take restorative art classes in college.
Oh.
To be able to do some pretty cool things.
Can you give an example of, like, I don't know, if there was some damage to the face, how do you reconstruct it? Do you think put things in there to build it up back up, or?
Yes, there's so there's a thing called tissue builder. It's actually kind of like the lip filler. It plumps the cheeks up, it plumps the lips up. We use stuff like that. There's waxes, there's glue.
We get some of that?
So if somebody was to have an accident or something, you know what I mean, or they have an abrasion or bruises, you know, we can use wax, cosmetics, different things like that to make it viewable, make them viewable.
Interesting.
Has anyone had, like, in their wishes after they die, that to have an actual, like, their hairstylist come in and do their hair like one last time or anything?
Oh yeah. We get that a lot. They actually want, because we'll have a hairdresser on staff usually. Otherwise, they'll say, you know, can, you know, mom have her hairdresser come in? We've already talked to her. We've had it arranged. She wants to come in. We do have a lot of requests for families to come in and dress their loved ones, do their makeup themselves, the hair, casket. They want to do the whole 9 yards. Can they do their nails? Yes, absolutely. Come on in. We encourage it, because we're not trying to hide anything, you know, and it's just like, yeah, if you want to be involved in that process, we encourage it.
Yeah, I can imagine that when you die, you want to make sure your roots are done before you have your open casket. Like, I mean, I could see someone doing that. They want to look their best, you know. They don't want to have the one last chance.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I've actually had family members cremated, and I've heard that a couple things. One is that there's still larger bits of bone and like teeth in the granules. I don't know what to call them, the ashes. Is that true?
Yes. So what happens with the cremation process is, you know, there's a big chamber, we call it a retort, and the body is placed into the retort, and it's about a 3-hour process depending on the size of the body, and it gets up to 1600 degrees. There is a crematory operator that goes in halfway through and has to, like, you know, rake it and stuff like that. And then when it's all said and done, it cools down, he or she rakes out the chamber. And what's left is basically, the bone fragments. So then that gets pulverized.
Oh, it does.
Yes, that's basically what you get back is your ashes. So you're getting some ashes back, but majority of what you're getting back is bone chips and fragments ground up and pulverized.
And I know
we don't pick out gold teeth.
Why not? You could replace it with fool's gold. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But I know this isn't really in your wheelhouse, but I've heard that it's illegal to scatter ashes wherever you want to. My sister's ashes are on Camelback Mountain, but I actually think it's illegal just to go ahead and put your ashes wherever.
It's really not. They say that. We always tell people, just don't get caught. You know, you can't, what you can't do is you can't go and bury ashes on top of a grave in a cemetery without permission. You can certainly, you know, call the cemetery. They can do it because they want to record it, but you can't do it yourself.
Oh.
I mean, like I said, my stepdad passed away. We scattered his ashes up at Holy Hill. I mean, people do it all over the place. Mountains, lakes, streams, rivers. So yeah, you can do it. Interesting. And there are, you know, like these things, people have parties where they take you out on boats and scatter, and then you can set ashes in fireworks and have them set off. And
interesting.
Yeah, and then they have the little, the little urns and the cremation jewelry that you can wear and get made, and there's a lot of stuff you can do with the cremated remains. Diamonds you can get made.
Oh, so in the retort, like, is it well cleaned after they scrape
After
it out
every
like a new? So it's not like you could mix up ashes. I mean, is that
No.
potential or no?
Mm-mm. I mean, when we tell people about the retort, we clean, we say we're very, very particular, and we have releases for everything in the funeral home. I mean, for embalmings, taking fingerprints, cremations, you have to sign a release on everything. We're very specific, and we tell people every cremation is individual. We do clean out the retort. However, I mean, if you want to get like minute pieces, dust, particles, but everyone is cleaned. They are not commingled. They're individual cremations.
Okay. And do they have clothes on, or do they go in naked?
No, we try to clothe everybody. We always tell families, you don't have to bring in clothes for cremation, but if you do, we will dress your loved one. We want everybody to go out dignified and respectful. Yeah.
Not like a little leaf like Adam and Eve. Okay, what else are we missing? I feel like you're like, I need them to ask me this. Asking me. We're like just not thinking of it.
Let me see what else. We have also done another thing that funeral directors do, and this is something you probably will never even think about. And this actually happens. Sometimes somebody will die, they're buried somewhere, or long-term, short-term, whatever, and then the family actually buys or builds like another plot. So they want their family member dug up and moved and buried somewhere else. So we actually do that too.
Oh.
It's called disinter. So we have to actually get a permit from the medical examiner. We go to the cemetery, they dig up the vault, and we open up the vault and we get out the casket, and then we inspect the casket to see what kind of shape it's in. If it's a wood casket, if it's been there a while, we may actually recasket them.
Oh.
Yes, and that is interesting. We have done a few of those where they've actually been buried for long periods of time, over 20 years, and we open up that casket, and it's quite interesting what we see.
What do you see?
Well, it's kind of funny because you would think, and you hear stories like the nails still grow, the hair still grows. It really doesn't. But they're really actually pretty preserved in the casket and in the vault underground. There may be like the one casket I saw from being underground. It was moldy. It was wet and it was moldy, moisture, but the body was pretty preserved. I mean, the skin wasn't necessarily there anymore, but you could still see like the hands and the clothes that they had on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did anything like any moisture get into the casket, or is it pretty well sealed?
It's pretty well sealed. They did a pretty good job of it. So, but I mean, we do that too. We do actually disinter bodies and put them in different spaces. Sometimes.
Are they, with that one body that you saw, was it still in like the position for like an open? It was. I'm surprised, like with all the jostling around and moving the casket, that it stayed in position.
It was still in the same position, and it was kind of funny because she was buried with a bag of Lay's potato chips, and I didn't open them or anything, but the bag was still like the same. It was still the same color. It was still like it had the.
It wouldn't be to light or anything. Wow, that's so interesting.
Right. So, I mean, it was kind of weird, but I mean, and another thing I don't think people realize is that bodies can get shipped to different countries, to different, all over the country.
Yeah, tell me about that. My daughter was actually just asking about that, and I said, I know they can do it, but I'm so ignorant when it comes to that. So how does that work?
So say you live somewhere else, say you're living in Arizona for the winter and you die, but your, family's buried up here. You can actually go to the funeral home down there and you purchase the casket and stuff, or you don't even have to purchase the casket. And then the funeral home will arrange for you to be flown. And you literally go, we have to take the bodies to the airport. They get put under the air cargo in a regular Southwest plane and you get flown back. Yeah. So, right, you could be on a plane, you know, going on your family vacation, and there could be a body underneath down in cargo, and you don't know it.
All in a day's work. Oh my God.
It is. It's always interesting. It's never the same, and that's why I think I like it too, because it's never the same.
Yeah.
That is cool. I mean, yeah, I would not want a job that was same day in and day out. So
Right.
it's
Right.
really cool. And you're a realtor. Do you do anything else besides those two jobs?
No.
No.
That's right. So I was a licensed funeral director. I still am. I got licensed back in 2000, so I've been doing it for over 20 years. I started in like 1998 as an apprentice, and I did it full time for 20 years. I was a manager at a funeral home, staff manager. And then what happened was my kids were getting older. I was divorced, and I was just working so much. And I said, I can't continue to work this much, because a funeral director works all the time, sun up to sundown. We have visitations at night. We have visitations on the weekends. You know what I mean? We are on call 24/7. 2:00 in the morning, somebody passes away. We have to get up and go.
You have to go?
Wow.
Yeah.
That must happen a lot.
It does.
Does
So
it?
if you pass away in a hospital and there's a morgue, you get transported down to the morgue. But if you're at home, you're in a nursing home, they don't have morgues. You know, and the family calls at 1:00 in the morning and they say, our loved one just died. I mean, they want you to come.
I wouldn't even know what to do if someone died in my house. I feel like I would call 911, but that's not what you need to do.
That's
Well,
what I was
it
thinking. The same
depends. So
thing.
if it's a sudden death, you know, if it was one of us and you just fell over, yes, you would call 911, because they'd have to call the paramedics. The medical examiner would come out. Medical examiner may take your body. They may take jurisdiction of your body, because they want to take you back, do an autopsy, figure out what happened. But if you're at home and you were, you know, sick and you're on hospice, then they just call the funeral home directly.
This has been extremely interesting, fascinating. I think it's really cool that you do this. I don't want to close out unless do you have any other questions, Erica? Because
Yeah, I don't think I do, but I just want to echo what Shar said too, because, and then just thinking through the care that you have to have for families and for people, I just think that that's a really special thing. And I think that's really cool that you do that. So,
Well, it is. It's really cool, because at the end, when they're, you know, they come in and say they wanted to have a closed casket, and they say, oh, we just want to look one more time, you know, and then they get there and then they say, oh my God, she looks beautiful. We're going to keep it open. She hasn't looked this good in 10 years. And then they turn around and give you the biggest hug, and you're like, oh, I did that.
yeah.
that is really special. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your experience with us and teaching us, educating us on all of this that we rarely get to hear about. So we appreciate you giving us your time today to enlighten us.
Check out our next video where we get to go behind the scenes with Jen
In the funeral home.